Okay, so you're here, you want to get smarter, right? But you don't have a ton of time.
Hmm.
And you don't want to wade through a mountain of information to do it.
Exactly. And that's where we come in, helping you cut to the chase, find those nuggets of wisdom that can really make a difference. Today, we're doing a deep dive into copywriting.
Yeah. Specifically, what makes copy effective for business, advertising, marketing, you name it. And our guide for this journey is Mark Shaw's book, Copywriting: Successful Writing for Design, Advertising, and Marketing.
You know, one of the things that struck me about this book is how comprehensive it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it starts with the fundamentals like what makes good writing work, period. And then it branches out and shows how those principles are used everywhere.
Everywhere.
Pretty much. Like you see it in traditional advertising, direct mail, retail, even the crazy world of digital marketing.
So our goal today is to give you some actual takeaways, not just stuff you forget right after you hear it, but things you can actually start using, like now. By the end of this, you'll have a much better grasp of why some copy just grabs you and makes you want to do something, take action.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Shaw makes this point right off the bat that I thought was really interesting. He says, you, the listener, you're already skilled with words, just in your everyday life.
Yeah, that's so important, that foundation. We've all been using language since we were kids.
Hmm.
So copywriting isn't this like magical thing you can't learn.
Right.
It's more about taking the way we already understand language and using it to shape messages that are super clear and focused.
And targeted at someone specific. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're designed to get a response.
Right. So that response could be anything from clicking a link to actually buying something, or even just changing the way someone thinks about something.
Yeah.
And this is what effective copy does. And Shaw, he stresses these core principles like clarity and accuracy. They're not just for some stuffy business document.
Right.
That's the foundation of any good communication, whether it's written down or you're just saying it out loud.
What I found fascinating was the point he made about the difference between just getting your message out there and actually making a difference. It's not enough just to be visible anymore.
Oh, yeah.
No. He says that just spending a ton of money on some big media campaign, it doesn't guarantee results anymore. Not in today's world.
Because we are just bombarded with information all the time, right?
Totally. We've all become experts at filtering out the noise.
Right.
People, they choose what they're going to pay attention to, especially when it comes to advertising.
So your message can't just be loud. It has to connect.
Exactly. It needs to be targeted, so it speaks directly to the people you want to reach. It has to be relevant, offering them something they actually care about. And ideally, it should be inspiring too. Make them want to do something.
That's where good copywriting comes in.
That's it.
And speaking of who you're trying to reach, Shaw is big on understanding your audience.
Huge.
You can't just throw out a generic message and hope it sticks to everyone.
Right.
It's not about broadcasting. It's more like having a one-on-one conversation with your perfect customer, in their head.
Uh-huh.
Every word you choose, it's like you already know their deepest desires and fears.
Let's say you're targeting IT procurement managers at big companies. These aren't just businesses. They're people with their own problems and priorities.
Right.
They're making big financial decisions for their companies, so they're looking for value, reliable service, support, and they're thinking about how these choices will affect their own careers.
So the copy needs to speak their language. And I don't mean just using the same jargon they use.
Right.
It's about understanding their motivations, their concerns, what makes them decide to buy something.
And the tone needs to be just right, too. Authoritative, reassuring, credible.
Not some silly sales pitch, right?
No. Clear benefits laid out in a way that makes sense to them.
The book also talks about how important it is to understand how your audience already buys things.
Yeah. How do they research? What kind of information matters most to them?
So, for an IT manager, specs, numbers, proof that they'll get a return on their investment, that's what's going to persuade them, not some emotional appeal or a catchy slogan.
Right.
There's this cool technique Shaw talks about.
Yeah.
Creating these detailed character profiles.
Well, yeah.
He gives the example of Harley Davidson. They really get to know their writers, who they are, what they do, their passions.
And then they build their advertising around that.
Yeah, it's about making the audience see themselves in the message.
So it's less about trying to sell them something and more about making a connection. So they think, hey, that's me they're talking about.
It's their own thought process leading them to the product, not some pushy sales tactic.
Exactly.
Okay, so you've got a deep understanding of your audience. Now you need to create a message that'll grab them.
Right.
Shaw says that the best copy, it's not just luck. There's usually a central idea, a creative concept that gives it direction.
That idea is like the backbone.
And every piece of good copy, it needs a call to action.
Yeah, you got to tell people what you want them to do. Click here, call us, visit our store.
And make it super easy for them to do it.
Absolutely.
To keep people reading, Shaw talks about promising, delivering, and reminding.
You like that?
You start by hinting at something valuable, then you deliver on that promise with great content or a great offer.
And then you remind them why it matters to them.
Right.
Smart.
He also talks about this hidden structure in good copy. It's not just a jumble of features and benefits. It flows logically. It keeps you reading.
It's like a good story.
This is something I'm always a fan of, the power of intrigue.
Oh, tell me about it.
It's so much better when people want to buy from you because they're genuinely interested, not because they feel pressured.
It's that feeling of discovery. People love that.
So let's talk about how a brand sounds.
Tone of voice.
Right. That's huge for conveying a brand's personality.
The example of the mobile company 3 really stands out.
What did they do?
They ditched all the fancy words and just used simple active verbs like boom, boom, boom. Simplicity and energy.
Shows you how much words matter.
Totally.
Here's a big one, and this is something a lot of writers struggle with. There's usually no room for your personal style in the copy.
It's about the brand.
The brand's personality needs to come through and be consistent.
That consistency is so important for building trust.
There's this exercise in the book. Take some copy that's clearly on brand for a company, then write an off-brand version.
That's a good one.
It shows you how even small changes can make a huge difference in how the message feels.
Like that lipstick example, remember?
Yeah.
Totally different vibe just from tweaking a few words.
Now, before you even start writing, Shaw stresses how important the brief is.
The creative brief.
Yeah. It's not just something you passively receive. You have to really get into it, ask questions, make sure it's thorough.
Often the initial brief doesn't have everything you need.
Right.
So you have to do some digging yourself, some extra research to fill in the gaps.
Once you've got a solid brief, then comes the fun part, getting feedback.
Ah, yes. The inevitable feedback.
And anyone who's ever done anything creative knows what I'm talking about.
You always get critiques. Always.
The book has some good advice for dealing with that.
Oh, yeah? Like what?
He says, always think about the feedback in relation to the core stuff.
You mean the target audience, the main message,
Yeah.
the USP?
Exactly. What makes this product or service different? If the feedback doesn't connect to those things, it might not be that important.
That makes sense.
It also helps to understand the psychology of how people approve creative work. A lot of times, it's easier for them to say what they don't like
Oh, yeah.
than what they do like.
For sure.
So you have to be ready for those conversations
Be able to explain your choices
and justify them.
based on the brief and what you know about the audience.
Yeah.
But you also have to be open to suggestions that actually make the work better.
It's a balancing act.
Yeah.
The book has this really interesting section on the history of advertising and copywriting. It wasn't always as focused on the customer as it is now.
Right. As economies grew and there was more competition, businesses needed new ways to sell things.
They had to move beyond just listing features and start appealing to what people really wanted.
Like that old Cadillac ad.
Yeah. It wasn't about horsepower, it was about status.
Success.
And then in the 70s, conceptual advertising came along.
That was a game changer.
Big ideas, thought-provoking messages, connecting with people on an emotional level.
And advertising has always had to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
Stay fresh, surprising, break new ground.
That's never going to change.
You got to stay ahead of the curve.
Shaw makes this distinction between advertising and direct marketing, which a lot of people get mixed up.
Right.
At its core, advertising is about making people aware of a brand. The company's in control of the message, and it's clear who's behind it.
With direct marketing, it's all about getting an immediate response.
Like a sale or a lead.
They communicate directly with the consumer. Specific offers, personalized information.
So think of it like this. A billboard is advertising. A personalized email with a discount code, that's direct marketing.
Different goals, different approaches.
And that brings us to lean forward versus lean back media.
Oh, yeah, I love this concept.
Lean forward is when someone's actively looking for information. Like when you're browsing online, they're engaged.
So you can give them details, be direct.
Lean back is more passive, like watching TV or listening to the radio.
They're probably doing other stuff at the same time.
So your copy has to be catchy and memorable. Grab their attention fast.
Makes sense.
Shaw says most copywriting these days is actually geared towards lean-forward audiences.
Interesting.
When it comes to that initial hook, especially in mass media advertising above the line, he's a big believer in visual words.
And brevity.
Keep it short and sweet. You don't have a lot of time to make an impression.
Like a magazine ad or a radio spot.
Right. You've got to use words that paint a picture and do it fast.
Okay, let's talk direct marketing. Mailing lists are key here.
Huge.
The whole game is about reaching the right people. The book talks about the difference between big, low-quality lists and smaller, high-quality lists.
So if you're sending something to a small group of wealthy people,
You can tailor the message, use language, and offers that appeal to their lifestyle.
but with a larger, more general list, you got to go broader. Focus on the core benefits of the product.
And use language that appeals to a wider range of people.
The book mentions that response rates for direct marketing are usually pretty low.
Oh, yeah.
Like sometimes as low as 0.04%.
Wow.
That's why targeted lists are so important.
You got to make sure your message is reaching the right people.
Now, creativity is obviously important for copywriting,
Of course.
but the book has a good word of caution.
What's that?
It's not about trying to be super clever or showing off.
It's about the message.
Yeah, the focus should always be on understanding your audience and what you're trying to say.
The creativity should flow naturally from that.
Don't get too caught up in trying to be the most creative person in the room.
Just focus on communicating effectively.
Before you go too far down the rabbit hole of writing, Shaw says it's a good idea to involve stakeholders early.
You mean the client, the project sponsors, anyone who has to approve the work?
Yeah. Share the brief with them, get their feedback. It'll save you a lot of headaches later.
Better to get everyone on the same page from the start.
Okay, so let's talk about retail copywriting. Fast-paced world.
Totally.
You got to be clear, concise, positive,
Think about the shopper. They're usually looking for something specific.
and your copy needs to help them find it, understand why it's good, and buy it.
Make it easy for them.
Every retailer has a different personality, different products.
And the copy has to reflect that.
Good product descriptions are crucial for sales.
They make a huge difference.
And it's not just about the product descriptions. You need good signage, clear communication throughout the store,
Guide the customer.
even something simple like a 3-for-2 offer. You got to word it carefully so there's no confusion.
No misunderstandings.
Direct response copywriting is similar, but even more focused on getting people to take action right away.
The whole point of direct marketing is to get a measurable response.
A sale, a lead, a sign-up.
So you really need to know your audience inside and out.
Not just for the copy itself, but for the strategy behind the whole campaign.
The media buying, everything.
Catalog copywriting is a different beast altogether.
It has to do a lot of things at once. Attract attention, guide the reader, give advice, and make it easy to buy.
You need a strong theme.
Choice, value, quality, something like that.
The structure is important too. Clear section headings, attention-grabbing copy for featured products, and good descriptions for everything else.
And there are differences between print catalogs and online catalogs.
Online, you have more space, you can add videos and stuff.
You got to be more concise.
Don't forget the essential info, delivery, returns, and index.
Make it easy for people to use.
Company magazines and newsletters are more about building relationships. They create a sense of community, build trust.
Newsletters are shorter and more frequent.
Magazines are meatier and less frequent.
In-depth articles, industry insights.
For both, research is key.
Present the information in a way that's credible and engaging.
For news articles, there's a simple structure. Catchy headline, strong opening, main body, and a conclusion with a call to action.
Classic structure.
For longer articles, connect the content to the audience's interests.
And encourage feedback.
Okay, let's talk digital copywriting. The book calls websites interactive direct marketing tools.
They are.
They have to be engaging.
The copy needs to be tight, concise, easy to scan.
Navigation is crucial.
Give people control over their experience.
People scan for keywords online.
So use them.
Cut the fluff. Get to the point.
A little personality is good.
But don't go overboard.
Use industry terms. Be specific.
Then we have brand naming. It's more than just picking a cool word.
It's about understanding how that name will connect with people.
The book suggests brainstorming, using dictionaries, even creating new words.
Then you got to pressure test the names.
Make sure there are no double meanings, no negative connotations.
And make sure no one else is using it.
Trademark availability is crucial.
Don't forget that part.
Lastly, we have internal communications.
This is often overlooked, but it's so important.
It's about building strong relationships with employees.
Create a positive culture.
The tone should be fresh, upbeat.
Use targeted copy that speaks to people in their specific roles.
Avoid jargon and overly formal language.
Get real.
The book also talks about having a company dictionary.
for consistent language.
It reinforces the brand voice from within.
Nice.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into copywriting, a few key things stand out.
What are they?
Clear, targeted messaging.
Focused on the audience.
Know who you're talking to, what they care about, speak their language.
And adapt your approach based on the medium.
An ad is different from a website.
Totally different.
And while there's a strategic side to copywriting,
Analyzing the audience, crafting the message.
there's also an art to it.
You need creativity to capture attention, build connections, and get people to do what you want them to do.
So here's something to think about. As you go about your day, pay attention to the messages you see.
The ads, the websites, the emails,
What makes some of them stick with you?
and why do others fall flat?
How can you use what we've talked about today to improve your own communication?
Whether it's at work or in your personal life,
Because being able to communicate effectively is a superpower.
in any situation.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
It's been fun.
Till next time.
See you then.